All right, we're going to have a conversation about Notre Dame and contraceptives. There really is no other way to describe this conversation. Anyways, Anthony, go ahead and enlighten us on this recent event.
All right, so according to a story coming to us from churchmilitant.com, Notre Dame shame, Notre Dame has decided to adopt the policy to provide contraceptives for its more poor students, and this is to alleviate their burden. Now, another interesting detail about this is that the president of the university, Father Jenkins, reportedly opposes the use of contraceptives and yet is the one basically pushing for this policy. So let's talk about that.
All right, so let's talk about this because I really think this is a multi-tiered issue. And we're not going to get into the whole idea on what's the church's stance on contraceptives. We're not going to say anything for the Catholics. I'm not answering for them. Obviously, I'm a Protestant. I'm a minister in the Church of the Nazarene. That's a whole other conversation. But what we see happening here really is someone saying, there are poor students, we're going to give something to them. Okay, let's talk about that. What does it actually mean to give to the poor? What does it mean to do charity? What does that virtue actually mean? And are we just choosing that virtue at the expense of others? One of the big problems that we have in our world is oftentimes people, they will choose one virtue and they will cast a lot of other ones out. And this really allows them to do whatever they may have as their personal motive, or maybe they're just personal conviction without any checks and balances. One of the things that is so beautiful about the calling of the people of God is that Christ has given us a number of virtues to follow. We are to be people of truth, people of compassion, people of love and empathy, but also people of logos and transformation. And so often we find people who are really into love and empathy, but they reject transformation. They don't really want anything to do with that. We might find people who are very good at orderly transformation, but not very empathetic. The thing is, we are called to be well balanced in our virtues. We're not to be people who choose and pick whichever one we like. Even G.K. Chesterton notes that it's more dangerous to have roaming virtues going around than it is just to indulge in vices. And this whole issue really sounds like that instance where roaming virtues are at hand, people pick one and they throw everything to the side. So, a couple of questions we have for this at Notre Dame. One, what evidence is there that there are poor students, as they had written in their own language, what are the evidence of the poverty-stricken students having issues getting these items? Is there even evidence of that to start with? Or is this just something which is branded a certain way in order to get something through? A lot of times people have these conversations, but they don't ever bring hard evidence with them to the table. And say that there even are people doing this that are actually in a position where they can't afford these things. Then we have the next question. What role does the church play in this position? Just because someone says, I'm poor, I can't afford this, you have to give it to me, that's not inherently consistent with the nature of Christ. Christ is, again, someone who is of love, but also of logos. There is always an orderly transformation. Just because Christ says, I will love you unconditionally, that doesn't mean Christ says, I will help you do whatever it is that you want. If you want to rob a bank, I will have, through divine messengers, they will bring you the schematics of your closest bank and give you all the layout on how to do this. This is absurd. Just because we have a personal desire that we want, whether it be good or bad, doesn't necessarily mean that God is going to come in and set it right in our lap. There is a orderly progression in which things move. And of course, the call of Christ is always towards holiness. So whenever we see people in the church say something like, oh, well, we're going to go do charity for the poor, one of the things that I always want to ask the question is, are we really doing charity? Do we have a good understanding of what charity is? Do we have a good understanding of who the poor are and what we can do to help these people? Are we approaching this situation with a healthy balance of love and empathy, and also logos, the orderly transformation that says we're not just going to slap a band-aid on this, but we're actually going to move you towards somewhere better. And especially in our modern culture where there are people who feel entitled to things, this is a place where we really have to ask the question, what is it that our goal is as a people of God, as the church? Especially from the standpoint of a Christian university, what is our standpoint and where do we go from here? Anthony?
All right, so one thing that I think is interesting is that, okay, let's take a look at this and pretend that, we're not looking at the issue of whether or not contraceptives are okay, and just look at what type of beneficial results is this going to produce, why are they doing this? Okay, so the idea is they're poor, and this is going to help them prevent pregnancy, okay? Yeah, but contraceptives are pretty readily available. They're fairly inexpensive, and Not to mention the fact that, there's always the number one easiest contraceptive, which is just, maintain a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
And, not go out and do scandalous things. If you're in the position where you don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
So, there's those things. And so we can see that there's not really a legitimate reason to provide the contraceptives. And then there's also to me, this seems really like more of a political statement.
Yeah.
Than anything else. To provide any good means, it's not really based in good. It's not based in a good reasoning, and it's not going to produce any real beneficial results. We're not going to see a significant change from this in the lives of the students of Notre Dame, because I believe that they could probably get a hold of contraceptives if they needed them. You know, and I think the biggest difference that's going to be here is political statements.
It is. It does come across like a political statement. And again, basic understanding of how the world works. If you subsidize things, you get more of it. If you tax them, you get less of it. And again, from the Christian university standpoint, there should be some, at least basic, code of ethics that says we are here for the purpose of holiness. I know it always bothers me how much we have lowered the bar for so many things. But again, it does come across much more as a political statement than it does as anything meaningful, because just as we understand college culture, if you're somewhere like Notre Dame, you're already having some sort of assistance to get there. Either that or you come from a background where you're capable of producing enough to be there. There is a reason why you're there. And to act like this is the threshold where we've got to step in and help people just seems a little bit ridiculous to me when you look at it in the context where it's at. It really does smell a lot more like some sort of virtue signaling or political statement than it seems like something being intellectually honest. Again, especially even if you try to sell the argument, oh, well, you've got to help the poor. Well, hang on a second. We've talked a little bit about taking the Lord's name in vain in past, and that's basically when you take and brand your own motive as if it's God's motive. Saying that this is helping the poor doesn't actually mean that it's helping the poor. Saying that this is charity doesn't actually mean that it's charity. Picking one virtue and throwing out all the other virtues doesn't necessarily make you a virtuous person. And in fact, it doesn't make you a virtuous person at all. One has to be well-rounded in their virtue. Just picking one is a very dangerous thing.
Well, even if we pretend that they are being completely genuine, and that they really are trying to help out, I mean, I think that it can be, again, pretty obviously thought that they don't need that much help getting these contraceptives.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of actually federally funded places to go and get free contraceptives. Well, so I don't see this to be a real.
Back to your point about even if they're doing this in good faith, they actually believe that this is the right thing to do. That doesn't make it the right thing to do. Just because you believe it's the right thing to do, you can still be doing bad things. I mean, C.S. Lewis talks about this quite a bit. I mean, the greatest tyrannies come from people who are sincerely they think they're doing good. They're sincere about it. They have no conscience about the tyranny they oppress other people with. People who have an ideology, they've got a concept, they think it's great, and they say, well, we're going to enforce this, we're going to do it. Well, if they believe that it's good, then they can do all sorts of tyrannical things free of conscience. It's a bad place to be. So wrapping this conversation up, I do think this is a bad move on Notre Dame. It does look a lot more like a political move than it does a serious move. Again, it's something which is really a small drop in the bucket in terms of the grand picture of things. But at the same time, it's a pretty big issue when it comes to where we're at morally as a culture and where we prioritize things. And I think that says more about it than the issue itself, just what it means for the larger picture. Anyways, if you have enjoyed our content, please subscribe to our channel. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on SoundCloud, CastBox, iTunes, and of course we have a YouTube channel, Kingdom of the Logos. We seem to get a lot less traffic on YouTube than other places, but please subscribe. If you want to help us out, the biggest thing you can do to share our content, though I would like to make the announcement, we have set up a Patreon account now, so we can get some better equipment. Both Pastor Amanda and Anthony over here, they do a lot to work for myself and for the kingdom, and I would really like to get to a point where I can help them out in a meaningful way. So please do support us, and please share our content. That's the biggest thing you can do for us. And on that note, please have a blessed day.